everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma.
And I am Kim.
Here we got a little introduction here before we begin the festivities this week.
Yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping, so to speak. I know I spoke on a past episode about drag and all of the drag that's available to watch on streaming services. So I've got some really good news.
What is that?
Dragula, which is amazing. Seasons 2 and 3 are now on Netflix.
All right.
And that's the complete season 3, which recently finished, and I was very pleased with the results, which I will not share because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But yeah, it's really, really fun to watch. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Season 1 and 2 and 3 are all still on Amazon as well.
Nice. Any other drag updates before we begin?
I am thoroughly enjoying Drag Race UK. It's still on WoW Presents Plus. Mm-hmm. And I just watched an episode last night. And one of the queens got to meet her idol, which was really sweet. And the star, it's a British star that I've never heard of before. Because I'm not as up on British pop music as most people probably in the U.S. aren't. But he was so stoked. It was so cute. It was so cute to watch.
Was
my
it
goodness.
Billie Piper or Kylie Minogue?
No, it wasn't either of those. Kylie Minogue is Australian anyway, not British.
Potato. Anyway, I mean, they're the same thing. I mean, they were just criminals that were shipped off to Australia.
Yeah, don't let any Australians or British people hear you say that.
I checked our numbers. I don't think anybody from either of those countries are listening. So.
Oh, but you never know. You never know.
Oi, mate!
Yeah, and
I'm gonna come to the States with me boomerang.
Drag Race Thailand is still on WoW Presents Plus as well. We're getting towards the end of that series, and I'm very... it's just been so much fun to watch. I love both of those
End
shows.
of the series or end of the season?
Season, not series. Oh. I'm assuming that based on some of the level of the stars that have been showing up on Drag Race Thailand. Granted, I'm not familiar with any of those folks because I don't speak Thai and I don't follow...
Why is Danny Bonaducci in Thailand?
No, it's nothing like that. But yeah, they seem to be having... judged based on the reactions the queens have when they find out who's judging. These are some pretty big stars in Asia. So, yeah, it's just been a whole lot of fun to watch. Drag Race Thailand is so much fun to watch. So
it's the Joey Fatone of Thailand.
What?
One of the Backstreet Boys or whatever the fuck.
See, I kind of miss the whole Backstreet Boys NSYNC thing because that was when I was at college. I was into like grunge, alternative, all of that stuff. So I had no time for like boy bands.
Oh, I remember in '96. It was my first apartment, and there was a library close to my house. And this was the first time that like the internet, the libraries had like internet you could sign up for and go on. And I remember GeoCities. Do you remember GeoCities?
Oh God, yeah. I actually had a GeoCities site at one point.
Yeah, so did I. But they had some chat rooms which were really, really cool at the time, kind of ahead of its time in a lot of ways. But one time I was talking to somebody in Germany and they said, oh, there's this band here that sucks called the Backstreet Boys. I hope you never have to deal with them in the States. I guess they went to Germany first and then came to America.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Revenge for World War II, I guess.
I don't know. Boy, that's pretty harsh. Okay, so that's all I had to say.
All right, well, the show at hand. Let's bring up our first topic here.
Okay.
Let's talk about vaginas.
Of course, men want to talk about vaginas.
That we do. I've had the pleasure of playing with a few over the years, which is nice.
Oh my God.
Tim. Anyway, if my kids are listening to this, they're like, son of a bitch, motherfucker, I don't need that picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, this week I started reading a book by Dr. Jen Gunter. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. But the name of the book is called The Vagina Bible.
I've heard of this, and I follow her on Twitter, but I have not yet read The Vagina Bible because I feel like I'm pretty pretty well versed on what goes on between my legs.
I would hope so, but based on like stuff I'm reading in the book, it's and also with the patriarchal society we live in, it's not unheard of for women to not really know what's going on.
And that is true, because I know that I have had female friends and seen women online. Some of the things they're posting, it's like, oh girl, your school failed you when it came to sex ed. Thankfully, mine did not, and I also have taken classes over the years. When I was in college, I took a human sexuality class that was extremely informative, and I got an A in it. I think it's one of the few A's I got when I was in college. I was mostly solid B's and C's. So yeah.
That's like somebody fluent in Spanish coming and taking like a remedial Spanish course in like junior year of high school.
Well, I mean, I wasn't like, to get personal, I wasn't the most sexual person until I hit my 20s, because I was shy, and I was very serious about not getting pregnant, and I didn't want to risk it, and I wanted to wait until I was in love. And so I did. I waited until I was in love, and then once the gates got open, oh boy. Oh boy.
Your dad, if he's listening to this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, no!
I'm sure he's not stupid, so.
Yeah. Still, though, I mean, I don't want to ever think of my daughter being anything other than my daughter. He has 4
daughters. He's used to it by now.
Yeah. Anyway.
And he has a grandchild, so I'm sure he understands how that happened.
Yeah. Just like I told my youngest, you go to Babies R Us and buy them on sale.
Oh, God. Your kids are going to be so effed up, aren't they?
Probably.
So, the Vagina Bible, what did you learn?
It's not necessarily the content of the book I want to talk about. It's the fact that she makes it. It's Jen Gunter, not Gunther, but she makes a point early on about talk. Like one instance she talked about was she's a gynecologist, and she was in a session with a husband and wife, and the husband asked a question: "Where's the clitoris?" And she had two minds. On the one hand, she was like, he's asking, that's good, that should be supported. On the other hand, she thought, you've been married for 10 years and you're just asking that now?
Oh, good Lord.
Why? I mean, it's people don't talk about that. I mean, there's a lot of reason why people don't talk about this. It's,
it's
a religious society. It's uncomfortable.
It's embarrassing and that sort of thing. But honestly, it's really important to talk to your partner about what feels good, how I should touch it, because everybody is different.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, because we were talking earlier about the book, and I compared it to a video game strategy guide.
It's not a bad comparison, because it's pretty much what it is. I mean, a lot of people know, like, the basics of how to play, like, certain games and stuff. But if you really want to know, like, if you can't solve the quest, you can't get her there.
The quest of the clitoris. Yeah.
It is important to have, to seek out the extra knowledge, however that happens. Whether it's asking your partner what they like, which is always good, or looking it up online, or reading a book.
I mean, seriously looking it up. We're not necessarily talking about going to Pornhub or anything like that.
No, that's not going to help you very much at all. Trust me there. Yeah.
Depending on what you're looking for. But anyway.
No, still. No, porn is not really representative of what women like.
No, I know. I mean, some of the balancing acts they have to do, I don't know how they can. I mean, they get paid a lot of money.
Lots of yoga.
Yeah. But people don't have these I mean, it's one, they don't seek the information. They're scared. They don't want to talk about it with their partners. They don't want to find this information out on their own. You would think logically it would make sense that if you know in your heart you lean heterosexual, and
or if you're a woman and you lean gay,
or
you're bisexual.
You
like
get
me.
you get my point. If for whatever your potential future sexual partner is, wouldn't you want to know everything you possibly could to make sure that the experience was as good as possible? I mean, how many times have people been in a situation to where they didn't know what was going on, everything was fumbling everywhere, and you come out with an injury at the end just because you put something in the wrong spot?
Well, you would think people would want things to be as pleasurable as possible for your partner, but unfortunately, when it comes to sex, a lot of men are very selfish.
They are.
Not all men, but quite a few.
Oh, and that's one thing too. I mean, if you're the type of guy who can hear something like what Kim just said and come in with no kidding, not every single guy, blah blah blah. You get the arguments anyway.
But I have had to teach my own anatomy lessons a couple of times.
Well, like one thing she mentioned in the book was, and I guess we have Freud to thank for this, and that's the myth that a majority of women can have vaginal orgasms.
Vaginal.
Vaginal, you know what I mean. Vaginal orgasms during intercourse. Can it happen? Sure, but women especially get the constant message throughout the years that this is the primary way to get an orgasm, and then when they don't get it, they get frustrated. They don't know what's going on, and they're not looking for answers. They don't know that there's not necessarily a problem.
They just assume that they're defective, and that's not right.
No, it's not.
But there are quite a few women who assume that because they can't get off with, what Dan Savage likes to call PIV, penis and vagina sex, they feel defective. They feel like they're, that there's something wrong with them, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Just women and men are wired in different ways. Some women can have lots of pleasure from, vaginal sex as well as from clitoral stimulation, but most women need clitoral stimulation to have an orgasm.
And that's the thing, because, that's another thing that shocked me, too. The fact that science has not really done a deep dive into everything that the clitoris offers until the 20th century.
Well, that's because science has been dominated by men. And, I mean, that's why we have drugs like Viagra, but we don't have a female equivalent. Well, and that's why we also don't have a male birth control pill, because men just assume that women will take care of it.
Well, it's another thing too that she mentioned. I guess they didn't really start using female cadavers in science until the 20th century. Yep. But even then, the cadavers they were using were women in their 70s and 80s, and I guess by that time, certain parts of the female anatomy start not looking like they do in their prime.
And that's true. Or they were using the cadavers of women who had lived a short and hard life, aka prostitutes, and that's not going to show you what an average vagina and other female reproductive organs look like.
Yeah.
Because most of the cadavers of that time, like the 1800s, early 1900s, we didn't have penicillin, so they were going to be riddled with STIs, syphilis, gonorrhea, those things.
Yep. Because
there were no cures.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing that shocked me too, there's no such thing as the G-spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the G-spot is a misconception on what the original scientific, because it is. I mean, there is a term G-spot, and it was I forgot the doctor's name. I guess it was like a German or Austrian doctor. Mm-hmm. Last name started with G, so that's why they call it the G-spot. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna have your name put on something, but it's essentially what it is it's not necessarily a spot like one secret button that you can press and all of a sudden the woman would explode in pleasure. It's if only. Guys everywhere, just one finger. Where's that button? Boop. But it's essentially linked to the clitoris, because the clitoris is not that little thing that peeks his head out if you're doing your job right.
Yeah, the clitoris is actually a very large organ if you actually look at some diagrams of female anatomy that aren't on Pornhub. Yeah, it's amazing what you can learn when you read.
And I definitely recommend reading this book. Like I said, if you think of it like a video game strategy guide, you're going to go in with the right mindset. Even if you are a woman, reading this. I mean, like Kim said, most women that listen to this show probably know a thing or two about their own anatomy.
Well, and plus, if it's one thing to be like in your late teens, early 20s, you're still figuring stuff out. You're still learning, and it's a good time to read. I think that would be probably the perfect time to read it. Maybe we should start giving it as gifts to women we know that are turning 18 or 21.
Well, if it were Halloween again, no. Happy Halloween, bitches!
No, I mean, seriously, it's a lot of this stuff is I learned on my own, like doing reading, and I took a human sexuality class, but this was still in the 90s, and a lot of this stuff has just been discovered in the last, 20, 30 years. So, I mean, you learn a lot of stuff as a woman as you're growing up, but there are lots of resources out there, just not just this. I mean, Planned Parenthood is an amazing resource. They have an amazing website online that describes all kinds of different birth control options and talks about your anatomy, and it talks about different kinds of STIs and other kinds of stuff that can go wrong downstairs. And that's always going to be my number one go-to for information, even in this day and age. I mean, usually I'll go to their site first and then look for further reading after that.
Yeah, and to be clear, we are not necessarily advocating that people should, just break out like the cure for AIDS occurred and everybody starts fucking in the streets. We're not recommending that.
Although I think that the world would probably be a better place if more people were doing that rather than fighting each other.
It would, but my point is this, whether you're like in a polyamorous relationship or you're in a hardcore Christian man-woman marriage that goes on for 50, 60, 70 years, it is important to know this information.
It is.
And this is information that should be discussed because there are still too many myths, unnecessary, stupid, ridiculous myths that are occurring that are, negatively affecting women's livelihoods.
And everyone deserves to have a good, healthy sexual relationship, whether it's with themselves or with their partners.
With themselves? Okay.
It's true.
I just turned into a southern dandy there.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That was weird.
My.
I do declare.
Yeah, I'm getting the vapors. But anyway, it's called the Vagina Bible. Dr. Jen Gunter. You can also follow her on Twitter. Definitely recommend following her. She's very funny, but also informative. She's
very intelligent, and she's hilarious.
Yeah, she actually had this very informative thread, too, about the whole T.I. situation, the rapper T.I.
Oh, let's not start on that. Oh, my God. Oh.
Well, she corrected him. She corrected him in that thread about, the true nature of the hymen, and the hymen is essentially about as useful as the appendix.
Yeah, it is. It's just... Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough about vaginas.
Okay, so let's talk about something else.
Related to vaginas.
Sort of related to vaginas. And that would be... Are you saying you have anxiety around vaginas, Tim?
I can.
Because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this series of articles online called the Anxiety Chronicles. And I read the Washington Post pretty much daily. They have a sister site, literally, called The Lily, which is kind of their equivalent to, say, like Jezebel. The website Jezebel, kind of. Ooh. It's like feminist news. I'm going to use quotes there.
But serious.
But it's a pretty decent site. Sometimes it feels just a little bit pandering, but
it's not like top 10 ways to snare a man.
No, it's nothing like that. It's good, serious news. They do some really interesting interviews with various women who are working towards types of feminist justice topics, all kinds of different things. But anyway, they've been doing this series. There's over 60 articles now called the Anxiety Chronicles, and it details how different women are experiencing anxiety in their life, which is, I think, is very interesting for women and men because of the fact that it just shows that anxiety, we all think that we're the only one who feels that way when when we have it. And I speak from experience on this because I actually do have a diagnosis of what they call GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. And yeah, I get anxious a lot, but it's nice to know I'm not alone. That makes it a little bit better to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, I've been diagnosed in the past too with social anxiety disorder, which when you have a podcast and when you work in customer service is just an odd, bad thing to have. But, I definitely deal with anxiety issues anytime I'm awake.
Yeah. Yeah, and I take medication for it, which helps. It helps quite a bit. But I still have days where I occasionally will get a panic attack. It doesn't happen very often anymore, which is really nice. But it does happen. And anyway, because of these articles, it just kind of gives you, I think they're important to read because it gives you a perspective of, different people experience it different ways. I personally kind of feel like a sense of doom most of the time. And it's just better or worse depending on the day.
So it's like marriage? I'm kidding.
See what I have to deal with, people. I have the impending doom type of anxiety. Some people, they can't leave their house. Some people have regular panic attacks. Some people get racing thoughts, racing heart, all kinds of different ways to experience anxiety. And the articles are written by women from all kinds of different walks of life. And there's a couple written by celebrities. And it's interesting how everybody gets anxiety is pretty much what I'm learning. And there's so many times when I'd be having a panic attack and just feeling like all by myself and all alone and nobody else knows what this feels like and oh my God, I'm gonna die and that sort of thing. But it's not true. Everybody gets anxiety, and I found these articles to be pretty helpful to myself to read the different ways that people cope with it. I mean, everybody has their own strategies for coping with it or calming down from a panic attack that aren't necessarily involving drugs, which is good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought I'd mention those just because I found that they were interesting and helpful to me.
Yeah, and anxiety too, like you said, the big thing that everybody suffers from when it comes to anxiety is that feeling of nobody else understands. I know at my previous job that I loved so much, there was a lot of anxiety for a lot of different reasons that occurred. When I was working there, and I would also often find myself to the point to where I would get home and just be mentally exhausted, and just had no desire to leave the house. I know there was a guy I used to work with, really, really nice guy, invited me to a couple of social gatherings a couple of times, and I said yes each time, but then was not able to make it because of the anxiety. And that ended up, killing any chance for a friendship to occur at that point, because I would always end up being at home, and there was always a reason. It was a legitimate reason, because if I had gone out, it would have resulted in an anxiety attack. But it is what it is. But it's similar to what we talked about with the Vagina Bible. This is something that people should be open about. Like when I meet new people, I do try to tell them that I do have anxiety issues, and that can affect day-to-day stuff. I mean, because hearing me on the podcast here, you would think I talk a mile a minute every day, all day. But
no, he doesn't.
I don't really talk that much. And if I'm in a social setting, unless it's with a group of people that I do know, I'm generally going to be quiet. Not intentional. It's not on purpose. I'm not, angry or anything like that. It's just fear more than anything. It's just I would much rather be in a spot to where I'm just sitting there quiet and have some sense of control. It's probably control issues more than anything else with me, but yeah, that's just how I end up dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody's anxiety stems from different things too. I mean, some people it's just the way your brain works, and there's really not much you can do to help it except recognize it and then address it and figure out how to cope with it. And that's, I mean, I personally have my own specific coping techniques when it comes to having a panic attack. I have a tattoo on my inner arm that's it's a flower. It kind of looks like a mandala. And what I'll do is if I'm having a panic attack, I'll stare at it and I'll just kind of focus on it and start counting the petals. And for each one, I count something that I'm thankful for. And it kind of takes me out of that panic and anxiety state, it puts me into a state where I'm thinking about things that I'm happy about, which are things like, my family and the cats and my crazy boyfriend and
what's his name?
stuff like that. And it helps me. And people are like, well, why do you have a tattoo on your arm? And I'll talk about it. I'm more than willing to talk about my mental health issues, because the more we talk about it, the less stigma there is attached.
Your mental health issues do not define you.
Exactly.
They are you. It would be like apologizing because, I have a receding hairline. But seriously, that's, in my opinion, that's really how they equate, because you're not, I'm not going to do that. And, just like I shouldn't apologize for having anxiety issues. And if I don't talk about it, if I don't open up about it to people, they're just going to think I'm a really big asshole, not just an asshole,
And that's the thing, is I think most people are understanding if you open up, rather than just like canceling on people all the time because you're anxious. Tell them, hey, I'm having a really bad day.
Which I didn't do with Karen, someone we generally know.
But that's okay. I mean...
Well, Karen and I are still friends. Yeah. If she's listening, I love you, hi.
But yeah, it's about talking about it. And that was the whole point of the article series, is to get people to talk about it and be willing to share their stories and that sort of thing. So, the more we talk about things, the less stigma there is attached.
Amen to that.
Yep.
All right, so I want to talk about something extremely serious.
Oh. And with you, that could be anything.
What do you think it is?
I know what it is. Yeah.
You're supposed to take a guess. No.
I'm not playing along with you. With your games.
Okay.
Your mind games, Tim. Always the mind games.
I'm only here to entertain myself. But no, this week I was rereading the Death of Superman storyline on the DC Universe app. If you are a comic book fan, first of all, and like characters from either of the big two, DC or Marvel, they both have apps out there, DC Universe and Marvel Unlimited, which both have over 20,000 comics available to you. So if you like... if you go to the Marvel movies or you go to the DC movies and you enjoy them, for DC Universe, $6.99 a month, over 20,000 comics, and you get a bunch of movies and TV shows that you can watch. It's well worth the deal. But I was reading it and just kind of reminiscing about how I ended up becoming a fan of Superman, because it was this storyline that did it. Growing up, I wasn't a huge Superman fan.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I liked the Super Friends as a kid, but that was just...
Most people like the Super Friends.
Who didn't, but the older I got, as a teenager and whatnot, the more goofy it became, because by the time I was a teenager, we're talking Batman the Animated Series came out, and that's a different level of cartoon.
That was a different level of cartoon, definitely.
Also as a kid, that's when Nick at Night started showing reruns of the Superman TV show from the 50s with George Reeve.
Oh, I loved watching that when I was a kid.
I loved those. I did love that show, and one of the reasons I did love it was that, George Reeve got it. He understood what that character could do for, kids and for general audiences. He had the same mindset that Christopher Reeve had in the 70s.
Yeah.
With Superman. They both took it from different angles, of course.
Uh-huh.
But, he definitely realized that he had, it was an honor for him to do that role. And he had a responsibility to play it as best as he could, just because of what that character could offer. But again, apart from the George Reeves show, I didn't really care for it, because if you remember back in the 80s, I do remember watching the Superman movie on TV, but back in the 80s, what networks used to do, like it was on ABC, I believe, and for the movie of the week, if there was a new movie that was in theaters the year previously, what they would do is find a way to kind of spread it out. So instead of just one night, 2 hours, you got that movie there, they would take deleted scenes and pad that movie out so they can spread it over 2 nights.
I don't remember the padding it out over 2 nights.
Yeah,
usually it was just they'd take a 90-minute movie and then cut it in random places to add commercials.
No, they this is for the ABC Saturday Night Movie of the Week type of deal.
But then they block out 2 hours and show one movie. Usually, if it's stretched out over a couple of nights, it was like a mini series.
But no, they did this for Superman. They did do this for a few other movies. I'm not saying it was necessarily a common practice for each and every movie. Most of the movies of the week were, one and dones, like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, I don't really remember that because I think a lot of times when they were doing the movie of the week, it was on nights where there were shows on the other networks that we were watching.
Yeah. Well,
plus we had cable as of like 6th grade. So then we could watch other things.
Well, we had basic cable in our house, but, we had to wait, for the quarterly, free HBO weekends to watch anything good.
Yeah, I remember those. Those were so nice.
But like the Superman movie on television, spread over 2 nights like that. I was a kid. I mean, I couldn't even sit through the movie if you put it into a VCR at that age.
Yeah.
Much less spread over 2 nights, because a lot of the initial part of the original Superman movie is a lot of exposition, a lot of talking, and kind of boring for a kid. But it wasn't until the death of Superman's storyline that I realized that growing up I had a lot more appreciation for the character than I thought I did, because when that issue came with the famous cover of Superman's tattered cape flying in the wind, and then you have the picture in the last panel, this is the day Superman died. I got angry.
You got angry about it?
I got angry. It's like, why are they killing Superman? How dare they? And I was just upset, and it made me think.
So you were having a pre-internet rage quit moment?
Pretty much, because I was guilty of what like wrestling fans will do now. I mean, wrestling fans will see.
You were believing it,
not believing it, but calling it a failure before it had a chance to play out. Because my initial reaction was, how dare they kill Superman? They can't kill Superman. Not thinking that, of course, they're not going to kill Superman. They just wanted to make sure the public knew what they had there.
Well, when you're in a certain age, too, everything's really black and white.
Yeah, and, as my sister would know, I was rather moody at that age. Everything was, black or white, everything like that, but...
I'm absolutely shocked.
It's not like she'll ever be on this show, But, yeah, just that, and also a couple years later, that's when the incident with Christopher Reeve occurred. With the the horseback falling off and breaking his neck, and I remember at that time, because again, I wasn't initially a fan of the Superman movie, and when he did that, I was just an ass at that time, making people were making jokes about it. I think there were even jokes on like the major late night talk shows or anything like that, but. The more I saw his work after that accident, in terms of starting his foundation, getting back into acting, and just being a positive influence, and I know there are some members of the disabled community who were not a fan of his work because they felt that, why should I be fixed? There's nothing to fix in me necessarily. That's how I understood some of people that were critical of his work. It was still, he, with his later years, was showing why he was the perfect choice for Superman. He was doing what you would think Superman would do at that point. That's try to help as many people as he could.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good guy. He was just he seemed like he was just an all-around nice person. Yeah. And you can't really fault that.
Yeah, and it did shock me that him and Robin Williams were roommates in college.
Really?
Yeah, they went to Juilliard.
Actually, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, initially, after the accident, there was rumors that Robin Williams was paying all of Christopher Reeve's medical bills, but that was not the case. But
yeah, they both were making a decent amount of money, I'm sure, at the time.
Yeah, but anyway, just like that occurred. 2004, I believe, is when Christopher Reeve passed away, and then a year later, his wife ended up passing away as well from cancer, and that was just the saddest. But I dived more into Superman, and enjoyed the original movie, came to appreciate some of the later movies, not Superman 4. Superman 4 made Supergirl look like Citizen Kane. I mean, if you watch Superman 4, watch it on physical media with the writer's commentary, because the writer's commentary, the writer of the film starts off by apologizing for the movie.
Jeez.
Well, it was made by Canon, and that's another thing too, because when Superman 4: The Quest for Peace came out, I didn't see the movie in theaters, but my mother bought me the novelization.
Oh.
Because back in the 80s, probably in the 70s too, and before, you know, before movies were so readily available, they used to have somebody that would like read the script and then write a novelization.
I've read a lot of those novelizations over the years.
Yeah, like Star Trek is notorious for that for a lot of their movies.
Yeah, I read the E.T. novelization. And that was before they had cut the deal with Reese's. They were originally, it was going to be M&M's. Yeah. M&M just didn't want any part of it. And Reese's Pieces was like, sure, let's give it a try.
Fuck that movie. What are they going to
do? And as a result, Reese's Pieces sales went.
Yeah, I mean, they were new at the time. I mean,
yeah, they were brand new.
Yep.
So.
But, you know, just that character, people, whether it's a religious figure, a fictional figure, or both, you know, if we're being honest here, people want to aspire to something.
Yeah, they do.
You know, and a lot of times they want to aspire to be somebody, whether again it's a real person or a fictional character. And, you know, just over the years, I think it was just in honor of what Christopher Reeve did. I mean, I tried to essentially think of that character, which is one reason I got my tattoo, just to remind myself of what I should be as a person. Oh. You know, just as a reminder, basically, to fight that good fight. You know, don't let, you know, I know it may be a shock, but I can be a little bit of a sourpuss at times. And
what?
Yeah. And this is a way to kind of just keep myself in check. You know, just a reminder to, you know, try to be the best person I can possibly be, because that's what Superman would do. And, you know, that, again, a lot of this is just, you know, kind of memories going back, you know, just remembering. But, you know, that character meant a lot to me, and it was because of his death.
WWSD? What would Superman do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Well, of course. All right, you were watching some TV.
I was watching Netflix this week. I'm part of what I like to think of as the queer community. I like the word queer. Not everyone does. I do. But yeah, I'm bisexual. I'm part of the LGBT rainbow of fruit flavors. And I like to watch a lot of different queer content. If my enthusiasm for drag was not apparent, I also like other shows. And I noticed on Netflix this week, I was like, what? A new Queer Eye? I don't know if anybody doesn't know. Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was the starting show. And that was back in the
early 2000s.
Yeah. Where basically this group of gay guys went to a straight guy's house and basically made him over. And so now...
I don't need that.
It was a fun show to watch. I enjoyed it. And now they did a revamp on Netflix. And so now it's not necessarily for the straight guy. It's for all kinds of different people. And so basically these 5 guys all covering different sort of parts of your life. You got a design guy, there's a fashion guy, there's a grooming guy, there's a cooking guy, and then there's a what they call culture.
Is there a family guy?
There's no family guy.
Okay.
There's no family guy. But anyway, so they go and somebody gets nominated, they go and they make them over. Or they basically do something to help them and improve their life. So they've got 3 seasons of that on Netflix, and they just released this week a 4-episode arc where they went to Japan. And this was really, really interesting, because I don't know a lot about Japanese culture, but I know that it's quite a bit different than American culture. And I didn't realize how different until I watched this show. There's it's very rigid. Japanese culture is very rigid in a lot of ways. They're not as accepting of gay folks. There is no gay marriage in Japan as of this time. That sort of thing.
And you get prison for weed. I mean, so...
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And it introduced me to somebody that I hadn't heard of. Naomi Watanabe is a Japanese comedian. She is fat. And she is fabulous. And I am, like, now her biggest fan. Have you ever watched any of the Queer Eye shows, Tim?
No.
You should.
Not enough explosions.
Oh, you and your explosions.
Yeah.
There's lots of explosions of fabulousness. Anyway,
Is it like that meme with the guy throwing sparkles in the air?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not? I really enjoyed this little episode arc, and it was definitely an eye-opener into Japanese culture, and especially the last story was this couple who were married. They were basically living like roommates in this tiny little Japanese apartment, and they like hadn't had a date in like 3 years. And it was so sad, but it was just because they hadn't been talking. And these guys just got them to start talking to each other. And like remade their house, and just, it was so sad. I started crying watching it. Oh. I was just, it was a big reminder to talk to your partner.
Yeah, communication can help sometimes.
Yeah, talk to your partner. But it was very interesting to see the differences in Japanese culture compared to American culture. And, the Fab Five are always fab. And I love all of the guys on Queer Eye. They're just great. They're just great folks.
I know a former coworker on Facebook was lamenting the fact that there were only 4 episodes.
Oh, of the Japan arc. Yeah, I was kind of sad about that too. I was like, only 4 episodes? What?
You fuckers. No.
Well, now what I'm hoping, though, is that this means that they're going to go to other countries, too. Because I would be interested to see a Queer Eye in India. I'd be interested to see a Queer Eye UK, Queer Eye Germany, Queer Eye Russia.
Queer Eye Deutschland, yeah.
Yeah, Queer Eye China. Why not? Queer Eye Thailand. Yeah, I would love to see that. Queer Eye Africa, Queer Eye South America. Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean...
Send them everywhere. I want to see this. This is the kind of content I want. So listen up, Netflix. This is the kind of content I want. Send them all around the world. Let's more Queer Eye.
And then aliens in space. They're a burst of sparkles. We must go there. I don't know.
Why not? Life's hard. We need more sparkles. More sparkles.
More sparkles.
Sparkle, Neely, sparkle.
Techno music
sparkle.
and
Why not?
I think of that Simpsons. I never laughed so hard when I saw this. It was the episode where Homer thought Bart was gay. John Waters was a special guest star on the episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they went to Homer brought him to a steel mill because he wanted to show him how real men, act,
geez.
But then, so one of the foremen rings the lunch horn, and then all of a sudden, like techno music starts playing, lasers start going, and then Homer's like, "But I thought this was a steel mill," and then the guy goes, "Yeah, we work hard. We play hard." And then just a bunch of guys in a steel mill.
They're having a flash dance moment there.
Something like that.
Oh, jeez.
A couple of them are on like rising beams too. It was funny.
Oh, man.
We work hard. We play hard.
Gotta love The Simpsons.
Yeah. Gonna be on Disney Plus, all 30 seasons.
You should be a shill. What do they call them? I don't know. Those.
If they paid me money, they can call me a shill. I don't care.
Anyway.
Yeah. Next Tuesday.
Is that when it comes out? Next Tuesday?
The 12th.
All right. See you next Tuesday then.
Yep. All right. It is the album of the week.
Album of the week. Yay!
Yeah. It is going to be Kim's choice.
It was my choice.
Before we dive in, just as usual, think of this like Siskel and Ebert. We're gonna have disagreements about this music, but
we always do.
Yeah, but it's it's not personal.
Maybe not for you.
She's crying later,
Yeah, I'm just gonna go in the other room and sob later.
He didn't like my music.
He doesn't like my music. He must not like me. Okay, so this week it was my choice, and my choice was a band called Sebadoh, and the album was Bakesale. It was released in 1994, and it was the band's 5th album. The band was formed in 1988 in Amherst, Massachusetts. Lou Barlow is the lead singer and Eric Gaffney. Lou Barlow was previously in Dinosaur Jr., and he was one of the founding members of Dinosaur Jr. He was kicked out in 1989, and Jay Mascis went on to do Dinosaur Jr. on its own for quite some time after that.
He didn't like the same type of vegan stuff? No.
There was no vegan thing going on there. It was just...
Black tar heroin arguments.
It could have been drugs. I think it was just guys being in their 20s and arguing with each other.
That never happens.
That never happens now. Yeah. But anyway, Dinosaur Jr. did get back together in 2005 with the original lineup, and they're still together doing stuff now.
Playing state fairs?
No. You're so mean, Tim.
I'm kidding.
They're not playing state fairs. They're not big enough for state fairs. No, they still tour. They were actually here in Portland last month. And I did not go because of the venue. I didn't think I'd be able to sit down and just listen to the music and enjoy it because I'm old. Here's a tip, bands from the 90s. Play venues where there's lots of seating because we're old. We want to sit down. Just listen to the music because we have arthritis in our knees. Like me. All right.
Okay.
So overall, I love this album. It's the album that introduced me to Sebadoh. I found out about it from a Sub Pop rep. It's when I was working at the radio station at OSU, and I spoke to representatives from all the major and minor labels on a regular basis, them pushing their music, and that's how I learned about it. Was a Sub Pop rep saying, "I think you'd really like this," because they talk to us on a regular basis. They get an idea of what we like, and he's like, "I think you'd like us. It's got good songwriting. It's got good lyrics. I think you'll like this. You should listen to this, Kim." And I said, "I don't know. I don't remember the guy's name either." I'm like, "I don't know. Well, I'll give it a try." And I listened to it, and I was like, holy shit, this is pretty damn good. And it was, and I really enjoyed it. I like the lyrics. I like the music. It can be both sad and happy at the same time. I like it. And you're making a face.
I didn't like it.
I didn't think you would. Yeah. I was hoping you might. But, yeah.
Not my cup of tea. I will give my honest thoughts, but just not my type of music at all.
Okay. Yeah. Not enough explosions, apparently. So this was released as a remastered version. I don't know what year. I don't remember what year. Anyway, so if you go to listen to this on Spotify, it's going to have like 40 plus tracks. And I'll give you a hint. Don't listen to all 40 plus tracks. First 15 tracks are the original album, and it's the best part. I listened to some of the other tracks. I was like, I don't know. Some fans like to listen to outtakes and demos and remixes and stuff. Me, I just like the original stuff. If it was good enough to be on the album in the first place, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, you want to keep that type of stuff optional, kind of like director's commentaries or behind-the-scenes documentaries type of deal. Not everybody's interested in that, but...
And I guess it's optional because you don't have to listen to the whole record.
Yeah.
But, the first 15 tracks are the ones we're going to talk about. And the songs are all pretty quick. So I suppose that's good if you didn't like it, at least the songs were over pretty fast. Yeah. And he's nodding enthusiastically, so... Okay, so the first song, License to Confuse. This is one of my favorite songs on the album because it starts out with a really catchy hook, and I like the lyrics a lot.
I did note that I did appreciate the opening riff, and then the singer started singing. Yeah, this is going to be a common theme throughout my notes here. The singing was just, for what I like, I thought it was atrocious.
You don't like Lou Barlow's voice? I think he has a really nice voice. That's fine. I mean, that's not... Yeah, I mean, if you like his voice, great. I mean, I like John Lee Hooker, but he's not going to be... When he was alive, he was not going to be singing any opera anytime soon. Well, yeah, I mean, it's... I'm just surprised, because I think that Lou Barlow's got a nice kind of mellow, kind of in the middle range voice, and... It kind of surprises me to hear that you didn't like his singing.
No, a lot of the notes have the same theme, and it just came off as just monotone and just no real inflection in I'd like a little bit of emotion, just not monotone. I mean, I'm monotone enough, so
I don't understand why you think it's monotone, though. I didn't hear monotone at all.
It just, when I hear it, I think monotone. Just just no real inflect. Just like Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you think it's monotone, I don't know why we're gonna go through the whole album then.
No, we go through the whole album. That's the whole purpose of this. Whether we like it or not, we're gonna go through the whole album.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, track 2, Careful. I know on some of these songs that it's not always Lou singing. It's Eric Lowenstein is one of the other band members. I believe, or is it Jason Lowenstein? I don't remember. I'm brain dead today. Lowenstein is his last name, so we'll just call him Lowenstein. I know he sings on some of these songs, but honestly, I can't remember which ones, and I only noticed that when I saw them live a couple times. I was like, why is he singing? I thought these were Lou's songs. Oh, no. Oh, okay. But, I like Careful. It's not my favorite song, but I like the song. I like the lyrics.
To me, the audio mix kind of sounded off.
Yes, that's one of the troubles. That's one of the reasons why they did a remastered version, is because the audio mix was kind of off on a lot of these songs originally.
Yeah, because in this one I noticed that the bass was really loud compared to the rest of the instruments. And sometimes that's done intentionally, but this just came across as the microphone that was recording the bass was up a little bit higher than the ones recording the other instruments.
And that's one of the troubles of listening to some of the music from this era that wasn't released on a major label, is that they were doing what they could with what they had. And it was the best that they could do at the time. Track 3 is called Magnet's Coil. And this is one of my favorites. I really like the lyrics on this.
Wasn't a fan of the vocals, but I did have a note here that the opening riff was nice and dirty.
It does have a nice opening riff.
Yeah, just... and what I mean by dirty, too, it's just kind of the fuzzy, grimy sound. And yeah, I like that.
Something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've listened to this album a lot. I can, it's kind of weird if you can sing, the guitar riffs. But yeah, I like the lyrics about this. It talks about being wound tighter than a magnet's coil. And I can identify with that.
Goes along with anxiety.
It does. Track 4 is a little bit slower. It's called Not a Friend. I really like the guitar work on this song, and I really like the lyrics.
For me, it sounded like a song that would be played in the Bronze when Buffy Summers is talking to Willow about her latest issues with Angel on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Huh.
Because a lot of those early seasons, the Bronze was the club that the high schoolers
I remember.
hung out at.
I remember that.
And they did have bands that kind of sounded like this play there. I know Sean Lennon's band, I don't know if it was his band necessarily, but he was in it, Sebadoh.
It's not his band. It wasn't his band. He just happened to be dating one of the singers at the time. Oh, well. He played with them a lot.
Okay, he played with them on an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that's why I made it. It wasn't an out of the blue type of analogy here, but just that music just...
Yeah.
It had that just moody 90s teenager...
It was moody. It was a very moody song, but it fit with the way I was at the time. As 1994 was middle of my college years. But yeah, I just really thought it was really... it was a sad song, but it was very relatable. Track 5 is called Not Too Amused. I like this one too because it kind of builds up from kind of slower and quieter to towards the end. It's like, I'm not too amused. Yeah, it gets kind of loud and angry towards the end.
I felt that the people that wrote this song and performed it were heavily influenced by Nirvana, and it really showed.
Well, I think most of the bands at the time were all influencing each other, and a lot of them had a very similar sound. Because this was the sound that was coming out of the East Coast at the time, that the West Coast was doing its own thing. So I don't know if they were actually influenced by Nirvana, or if they were just taking the general sound of the time in a somewhat different direction.
It just sounded like they were doing an impression more than anything.
Really?
That's how I felt about it. I mean, if people disagree with me, then they disagree with me. I'm not proclaiming to be a fan of the band or anything like that. But and also to just, even with all the stuff I've said about this album, I will compare them to what I've said about Nine Inch Nails and Depeche Mode. Just because I may not necessarily like their music, their reputation precedes themselves. It is not an insult at the band. I'm just not, for this particular song, it felt like, like young kids, of that era trying to emulate Nirvana, but doing a bad version of it.
Whew.
Yeah.
So you were not too amused with that track?
I was not too amused no.
Alright, so the next song is called Dreams, and this is one of the songs, I mean, there's usually, most albums, there's at least one song that you're just like, bleh. I always skip this song. I don't really like this song very much.
Yeah, the vocal mix.
Yeah, the vocals are just
horrible.
Yeah, it was not good.
I mean, I couldn't understand anything, which is not necessarily a prerequisite for me. I mean, if you listen to enough Rolling Stones songs over the years, you can have 10 people have 10 different interpretations of what Mick Jagger said, but the music has to pick up the slack if you can't hear everything the singer has to say. And for me, the music did not pick up the slack.
Yeah, this isn't one of my favorite songs at all. I do like the next one, track 7, Skull. It makes me think about smoking pot. Because the song, it's all like, gently take my skull for a ride. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds like doing drugs to me. You just gotta...
Certainly not about skull fucking. I don't know.
Tim, you're so weird sometimes. Okay. No, there's not gonna be songs about skull fucking on this album.
New from Celine Dion.
Yeah. Skull. No. Oh.
We're about to get an impression here.
Track 8. It's called Got It. I don't quite get it, but I think I got it. That's one of the lyrics. I like this song too. For the same reasons. It's I don't know. I didn't make much notes on these. I drew a lot of happy faces. You can see in my notes. I drew a lot of happy faces. Yeah. Just because I like these songs. They make me happy. I don't know what you thought about it. You probably hated it.
I didn't care for it. This is this is about halfway through the album. And,
yeah, we're at about the halfway point.
Yeah, and this is where things really started blending together sound-wise.
Yeah.
And if there's one big critique I would have with the album is that there was not enough variety in the sound, which... Some bands, like Motorhead, a band we talked about previously, can pull it off. Motorhead, even if they're playing a slower song, they're going to be loud, but they have a way to kind of vary it up. And I did not hear that varying with this particular album. Yeah,
the variations here are more subtle than in most. It's not one of those albums that definitely goes up and down with the speeds of the songs and stuff. Because a lot of times... with a lot of albums, you'll have like a couple of upbeat songs and then a sadder song, and then it'll move back up and then move back down and goes up and down. There's not a lot of that on this. There's a lot of similar, which some people like. I kind of like it, but yeah, it's definitely a lot of the songs start to sound the same. Track 9 is called S Soup, also known as Shit Soup.
What?
I know. I really like this song. I like the lyrics that say crazy people are right on, because we are.
And I agree with that sentiment, but just how it was presented, it just sounded like a bunch of young, dumb white guys trying to sound deep. And it did not come across as them being deep. It just,
This isn't one of those songs that I would think they're trying to sound deep on, honestly. Because just the way the music sounds, it's like dun 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 dun. They're just basically let's come up with some lyrics and just make a really repetitive beat. And
yeah, well, overall, not my favorite track on the album.
Track 10 is called "Give Up." This one's it's a little forgettable. It's not one of my favorites. I just wrote jangly with drums. I like the jangly guitar.
Well, I did write this as a joke, but I did say the song made me want to give up on listening to the album. But no, seriously, it was a joke. Seriously, seriously, I did like there was a Black Sabbath type of riff that opened the song that I really liked. Singing, not so much, but as far as the guitar work, that was really good.
Track 11, Rebound. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. Just because I really identified with the lyrics. And I really like the guitar on it, too. This is basically like talking about being on the rebound. Being, trying to get over somebody. And being out in the world. On the rebound. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. Yeah. I liked it.
I did not like the audio mix on this particular track. I thought it was kind of sloppy and kind of detracted from it. Granted, coming into this point of the album, for me and my taste, I was probably going to be a lot more critical than what other people would be giving it a chance. But it just, again, the audio mix was just off. And that's how I have to explain it here. It's not that I'm not saying that like they were playing their instruments bad or anything like that, but if the levels of the recording are off and they're recording something at a higher volume than they should be, it can kill the mood of the song.
Yeah, it is. That's a valid critique when it comes, especially when it comes to any kind of independent music of this era. It's a very valid critique. There's an album by a band from Portland. The name of the band was 30-06, and their very first album, it was mixed so poorly, which was really sad because it had some really great songs on it, but the mix is so bad that it's really hard to listen to. They were much better live. Okay, so the next two tracks I kind of throw them away. I don't really like either of them. Mystery Man and Temptation Tide. I don't like the lyrics in Mystery Man at all. In Temptation Tide, they decided to throw in a female vocalist.
I thought it was one of them singing falsetto.
No, it was actually a woman.
Okay, yeah.
And it just didn't fit. I don't think it fit with the rest of the album.
No, again sounded more of the same apart from the female vocalist, but even then it just didn't fit. So
yeah. Track 14, Drama Mine. I like that one too, but it's there's nothing really that stands out about it. Track 15, Together or Alone. This is absolutely one of my favorite songs on the album. The lyrics, they really talk about breakup and when you've broken up with someone, is it, do you really want to be together if you feel alone when you're actually with them, sort of a thing. And
sounds kind of like every rose has its thorn.
It is, I guess it kind of is in a way. It's the same kind of sentiment. And then when the lyrics, there's a line where it's like, I'm not afraid of being alone. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to like get out of this relationship that's making me feel terrible because I'm not afraid to be alone. And I just found that it was touching at the time. It was something I needed to hear at the time when I was listening to it back in the day. I mean, overall, now that I can listen to it, it's from 1994, so it's over 20 years old now. And I can listen to it with a more
25.
critical... Wow. If I can now that I can listen to these songs with a more critical ear, I still like them, but I can see how, like, the lyrics and stuff can be construed as maybe a little bit juvenile. But if
it's kind of like the example I've used in previous episodes of Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
It is, when you're in your 20s. Yeah, it's of its time in terms of age, not necessarily when it was released. The age of the performers when they're releasing it. Because when you're in your 20s, stuff like that, that's deep, it's meaningful, it's emotional, that's your life. But in your 40s, not so much. You kind of are able to, step back a little bit especially in things like relationships, and kind of have a little bit more perspective than what you would have in your 20s. Not all the time. But.
Exactly. I know I have a lot more perspective now, being 46 instead of 23 or however old I was when I was listening to this.
Yeah.
22, 23, somewhere around there. But overall, they're still one of my favorite bands. They still are releasing music, and I like Dinosaur Jr. as well. So I'm always excited to hear new stuff from them, regardless. And I like to listen to the old stuff. So Sebadoh, Bakesale.
Yeah, the last two tracks, I'll throw it in there. Wasn't a fan. At this point, not much more to say, because it's going to be... I mean, my critique has been essentially repetitive.
Yeah.
Based... She's like, yes. But... Yeah, not my cup of tea. But again, like I said for other things, and like Kim said about some of the choices I've made, I can fully respect their place in the music industry. Just because I don't have a taste for that music does not make it bad. Just if you listen to previous episodes with the albums I like, you kind of get a sense of what I like, and probably understand why. But anyway,
yeah, we have definitely different tastes in music. It's very true. But it is what it is, and it spoke to me. It's one of those. What we've been doing is trying to pick albums that really speak to us.
And that's the thing too. I mean, earlier you made the joke about should we not go on, and I wanted us to go on, because even though I was not a fan of this album, hearing about how it how it affected you over the time, that's the point of this. Yeah,
and this is one of those albums that I would I would have it on as background music a lot back in the 90s. I would listen to it if I was kind of having a difficult time with a breakup or whatever. I know it has gotten me through quite a few breakups. And when you're a band and you're making music, isn't that kind of what you want to be? You want to be like the music that people turn to when they're having trouble with their emotions or something, in some regards. I mean, music will get you through the hard times.
Oh, it definitely will. I mean,
and that's one of the reasons why it's so important, and that's one of the reasons why I picked this album. It's an album that I love dearly, that got me through some hard times.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
So next week is Tim's pick. What are we listening to next time?
We're going to listen to a classic in rock history. It's from 1970. It's from one of my favorite bands, a band I had the honor of seeing live. It's The Who, and Who's Next, the album that spawned not one, but two TV show theme songs.
Great. Well, we're taking a trip back to the 70s again. My taste is firmly in like the 80s and 90s, apparently, and yours is in the 70s.
Late 60s, early 70s, some 80s, 90s, hit or miss, but 90s is probably... I mean, there are some new people here and there that, pique my interest, like Norah Jones, Casey Musgraves, people like that. But, in terms of, my music... I think when you're in your late teens, early 20s, that's kind of the era when you're discovering music, and the music I discovered was what's called classic rock. So
yeah, and the music that I was discovering was stuff that my friends were passing around, and like the older kids at school, because some of us were friends with. Because a lot of the stuff I ended up being turned on to when I was like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. And some of us had friends that were higher up, or they were older brothers and sisters, that sort of thing. And so then we would get, and we were passing tapes around, and there was no internet, so it was just like
that was before weed.
And what was on the radio, and what was other people were listening to, and it's how I learned about a lot of different bands. And then there was the time I went to a slumber party in 4th grade, and we watched Rock and Roll High School.
Nice.
And that's how I learned about the Ramones.
Oh, nice. Love that movie.
4th grade, the Ramones. I was like blown away. My mind was just blown. I was like, what is this?
Well, I had a similar reaction, and then I'll go into it more in depth next week with the Who. But yeah, I'll go over the songs, of course. Go over since a lot of their seminal tracks are on this particular album. I will talk about the time I saw them in concert, and because they also have made a habit over the past decade or so to they record, like any band, they record all of their concerts. And what they've done is that with the soundboard recordings from their concerts starting when they reformed in 99, 2000 till now, they sell them for charity. So I actually have on digital now. It was initially on DVD, but a copy of The Who in Grand Rapids.
Huh.
That I was in the audience for.
Not all bands do that, by the way. Not all bands record themselves live.
They should.
They probably should. They might now. They didn't used to.
Yeah, I mean, you would think with the amount of extra material that you could sell if you make it really, really big.
Well, just the fact that it's a lot easier to record stuff digitally now.
And store it, of course. I mean, because I think back...
used to be, you'd throw a cassette tape in the soundboard.
Well,
something like that.
Not even that. I mean, if you remember that fire that was on the Universal Studios lot of like about a year or so back...
Oh, yeah, that destroyed all the masters.
Yeah, that also destroyed a number of, like, Nirvana's Nevermind. The masters to that, gone because of that fire, because it was done on a physical medium. Now, there is always going to be some need for a physical medium to store that, but the fact that, history was turned to ash, kind of sad.
Yeah, it is sad, but yeah, this should be interesting, because... Personally, I have not listened to a lot of The Who. I saw Tommy one time live. I've heard songs here and there. But overall, they've kind of been on my list of overrated bands, honestly. So, I know Tim's like very, very sad now. But, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm always willing to give it a shot.
I know. Anyway.
I gave you a shot, right?
Yeah. And you're like, next week, I don't know anymore.
Well, you know what? We got through the
Sebadoh.
Rolling Stones.
And Sebadoh.
And we got through Waylon and Willie.
Oh, that was a good one, though. I mean, there were a couple you liked on there.
Well, yeah, because I'm not stupid. I appreciate things for what they are, but at the same time, overall, that album was a piece of crap, in my opinion. But anyway,
okay.
No use hashing out the past.
Yeah.
Let's move forward to the future, which is apparently The Who.
The Who. Who's next? Again, like I said, we'll go and do some in-depth stories about what the songs meant to me, about some of the history of the band and whatnot. But and yeah, with that, another episode's done. Hopefully, I don't choke here.
Yeah, Tim got my cold, unfortunately.
Just getting over it.
Mine, I'm done with. Pretty much.
Yeah. But we're done. We will see you all next week.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.